Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to another edition of Chaz Calenda, attorney at law, here with Pat Ford. We're here on the east side of Providence for a very special edition for the episode. Enjoying pizza pie, our favorite dish here. We're going to talk some politics, and we're going to have another interesting conversation about the state of politics and the Attorney General's race here in the state of Rhode Island. Pat, what do we have in here? What's going on?
All right, so first of all, we're at Pizza Pyre. We're at 374 Wickenden Street, a great Providence business. I've been coming here, since I moved to Rhode Island a long time ago. Again, support local businesses, break out of your comfort zone, try something new. The pizza here is wonderful. Yeah, it's by the way, we're having pepperoni, mushroom, and
anchovies.
Anchovies
On that.
Yeah, but you know what? I learned how to eat anchovy pizza in college because if you ordered anchovies, no one would bother you for a slice. And so, you know what? It's an acquired taste, to be sure. But thanks to the restaurant for hosting us. We went to another restaurant a little further up the street, who shall not be named. What's the first thing they asked you for?
They wanted my vaccine proof. I almost walked out, but I didn't want to embarrass my guest here.
Yeah,
so
as if I'm embarrassable. Really?
I was not impressed from the beginning. So
well, we also didn't bring with us the legal paperwork of it, so they eventually said no because, well, it's Providence. You can't have a slice. Well, there was a restaurant. I don't want to imply there was any other piece of joint, but you can't have something to eat and happen to video stream it at the same time.
Apparently not. You need they wanted all sorts of documentation and sign-offs from everybody in the restaurant before they let us even say that.
Wow. Yeah. So, but let's get to it. First of all, how is the campaign going?
It's going great. Actually, I'm very encouraged by the feedback I've been getting from all sorts of people in the political spectrum. Particularly some very moderate Democrats who are just sick and tired of the far left taking over their party, hijacking the party. They want some check and balance, and they know that the Attorney General's office has the ability to have that check and balance if I were to be elected and hold the people accountable for the decisions they're making.
Absolutely. You're spending a lot of time right now, not just with folks out in the community, but you're also there at this time of year. All the major parties have their own party events. So you're spending a lot of time with Republicans as well as the greater community. Is there a crossover? Is there a single issue that both Republicans and just regular folks from the state are concerned about?
I found that a bipartisan issue is children and parents' rights. It is cutting across partisan lines like I've never seen. You have mothers, fathers, parents, guardians who have potentially voted Democrat their entire lives, repeatedly telling me they want the government out of their children's lives, out of their lives, stop making their educational and medical decisions for them. And they're saying they don't have an attorney general, they don't have a government that's been fighting for them this entire time. And that's what they're sick of. They don't care what my party affiliation is. They don't care what the party affiliation of those people who are doing it. They just know who's doing it to them. And they want someone to stick up and fight for them. And I'm assuring them that's what I'm going to do when I'm the attorney general.
It's amazing how quickly the population, if you will, has gotten up to speed at this point on literally every issue about the pandemic. And obviously the proposed legislation this week just set Rhode Island on fire. And personally, as someone who's an observer as well as a participant, I thought the issue kind of got quiet. Holy cow. What are folks saying to you about it? We'll talk about the legislation.
I mean, the legislation that was proposed by a number of state senators of New York, with the House members, I can't remember at this point, but it was proposed that, I know it was Sam Bell, Tiara Mack, and two of the sponsors, who I believe still remain on the bill, $50 a month if you don't vaccinate your child. And then there was double your income tax, I believe it was, if you refuse to comply. So that set Twitter ablaze, I'd say, for the last few days.
Oh my God. What's fascinating to me is just a couple levels. The depth of resentment over the issue itself.
Absolutely.
The degree with which people are reacting almost on a hair trigger basis. The connection folks have made to legislation that they, and I'm talking about individual folks from the real world, not our world,
Right.
all right, that made it to, to legislation that I haven't seen before.
Never.
This was up and live in about an hour, and literally the world is, has just lost it.
Rhode Island's on fire right now, and it doesn't take much to set a lot of the people who are engaged in this on fire. And people, quite frankly, have never been engaged politically in their lives before, are now probably a hair trigger away from losing their minds.
Right.
And it's not. I'm not saying that in a derisive way. I'm saying that in a way that people just feel like they have no one to turn to. They have no one listening to them. They have no one fighting for them, and they just feel left out and bullied by their government.
And that seems to be the point that people are missing here. You could debate the issue, but you can't exclude people anymore. People, those, on so many different levels, whether it be their children's education, whether it be the day-to-day business, the Superman building, the sweetheart deals, or whether it be issues surrounding the pandemic. People are intimately connected, they're paying attention, and there's an incredible amount of resentment because they feel like they've been kept away from the table, that they don't have. I mean, these folks are all stakeholders. We all are, right? And they don't feel like they're getting their fair share.
And they're not. If you look at it from a practical standpoint, they're not getting a fair share. They're not being included in the process. And they're looking at it that all the insiders to get their pockets filled, whether it's legal or not. I'm not saying it's a crime that's going on in the literal sense, but I'm certainly saying that people feel like they're being taken advantage of, that they're being used as a piggy bank to fund things like the Superman building project and other pet projects that are going on around the state. And they're not really being consulted or listened to as far as what their opinion is. And that rubs a lot of people the wrong way. And it's cutting across the partisan lines.
What's it going to take for Rhode Island government? Again, let's just not limit this to this controversial bill. Let's talk about the Superman building, because the Superman building, again, as I asked the question at the press conference, is nothing less than taxpayer funds being used in the form of corporate welfare for a failed private real estate investment. And the first thing I said was, okay, hashtag 38 Superman. And and the reason I say that is not because it has anything to do with 38 studios. It's not because it's a quasi real estate investment. It has everything to do with the fact that there's this studied arrogance where lawmakers don't feel, again, here's the thing for tonight, I guess, who feel that they can make these deals and simply in their face. And we all know the financial challenges that Providence is facing.
Right.
I love Providence. I spend most of my living, breathing time here in the city. Right? I love this city, but the city of Providence should not be writing a $5 million check to a private developer for a failed real estate investment.
Particularly in such an opaque way. I think it's a lack of opaqueness. I mean, the lack of transparency, I should say, that's really getting to people. You put it in your terms, a sweetheart deal for a failed real estate investment. But people are looking at it that there's just no accountability and there's no transparency in the process, and they're just kind of assuming the worst.
Well, I mean, it's those are the facts. They're not deniable. I was at the press conference with the governor, and it was reminiscent of that Oprah meme. You get a car, you get a car, oh, you get a car. In this case, it's you get a check and you get a check. And I want to say they donated $500,000 to Crossroads, which in a couple of years will probably be roughly the salary of Ms. Santilli, the chair. But she makes about $260 a year. But my point is, if you're getting $5 million from one place and you're getting a few million from here and $10 million from there, but you're giving $500,000, that's not charity, that's public relations. Sure. And so there's a buyout there. We can't offend this person because he's coming with the rescue money. And Gonzalo Cuervo, who is, working in the Secretary of State's office, was running for mayor at the mayor's forum in the Jewelry District Association, put it very clearly. Why does the state of Rhode Island jump every time some guy walks into town with a check?
Well, that's the question that people want answered, and that's not being answered. We just keep doing the same things over and over and over again without any real meaning meaningful oversight. And this is the kind of deal, these are the kind of deals that you walk into. So I think your 38 Superman hashtag is apropos because it's done in the same manner that 38 Studios is put together. And we don't know how that turned out. It's still being debated today. How many years later?
It will, the hangovers for the Superman bill, sorry, for 38 Studios will be with us for a generation at least. Because again, the failure of the government actually just, Vincent A. Buddy Cianci once used the term, and I loved it, and I've used it ever since, to come cocoa. You know, they won't come cocoa at the actual facts, and they talk to us like we're morons.
Well, they talk to us like they know that most people don't know what's going on behind the scenes. And I think that's insulting to a large portion of the population here in Rhode Island, is that they don't like to be talked to like we're stupid. We're not stupid. Most people are not stupid. And most people want to know what's going on. And most people want to be included in the process. And when you have government officials kind of writing you off and saying, we're not going to explain ourselves here, this is just how it is, that is going to make people resentful. And one of the reasons I'm running for Attorney General is because we don't have somebody in that office right now who thinks he works for people. He actually tells people who call his office, I don't work for you. Well, yes, you do. You work for the people of Rhode Island. It's your job to represent. It's your job not only to represent the state, it's your job to represent the people of the state. And that has been missing not only in the Attorney General's office, it's missing in our city government and here in Providence, it's missing in our state government all over. And it's something that's finally, I think, is coming to a boiling. And it's finally catching people's attention. Right.
Well, again, you just had people take literally, in some cases, 2 years off. It had nothing to do now but pay attention. The snow jobs, the outright lies, the misinformation is not going to be tolerated.
Certainly not by the people I've been talking to. And I'm not talking to just Republicans. I'm not just talking to people who I think would agree with me. I talk to a lot of people across the political spectrum, and I think pretty much everyone's had it up to here with the opaqueness and the usual way we do business here in Rhode Island.
Right. So now, I attended legislation last week, and I was at Halitosis Hall until about 1 a.m. On criminal justice department. As I was leaving at 1 a.m, Jason Knight, the representative from East Bay, was introducing legislation for these right. What type of optic, what type of state do we live in that's discussing legislation at 1 a.m?
I would say a government that does not want input from the people, because most people are not going to be able to stay till 1 a.m. to give their input to their state representatives about what they think about legislation.
And a significant number of them have already bailed for the state legislature.
A lot of people work. A lot of people have families, other obligations. I mean, could you afford to stay until 1 o'clock in the morning every night to talk about this thing? Maybe you do, Pat, if you cover this stuff. But I know it'd be tough for me. I know it'd be tough for most working families and people, people with other obligations to be able to put aside multiple nights a week to be able to attend these hearings.
Right.
Especially at 1 o'clock in the morning.
Well, and you have the state piling on with, 20, 25 bills a day. Going back to this legislation that would tax and fine people for, giving up their body autonomy.
Right. Are we really having this debate that we're going to double your taxes if you don't have a vaccine in your body that, for whatever reason, you don't have it, we're going to double your income tax?
One of the stunning parts of that chaos yesterday was the admission by significant legislators that they were sponsoring a bill that they hadn't even read. What signal does that send?
Where have I heard that before? We have to pass it before we read it. Where have I heard that before?
Right.
Someone, Pelosi?
Somebody like that.
I don't remember. I think it's my opinion, and I'll say it out loud, is that if you're a state legislator and you sign your name to a bill that you have not read, someone should just pack up your office and remove you because you are not doing the job.
Let's head over now. I know the guy.
I volunteer.
I know the guys at the Cat Police.
Will they let us in? Because I'll volunteer to do that because you are not doing your job if you have not read your bill yet, you are advocating for legislation, but you actually have no idea what's in it.
Right.
That's literally not doing your job.
I,
The definition.
and if they're complaining because there's so much legislation, I've got an idea. How about we limit every state legislator to maybe 3 bills? Because one of the problems that state faces, as it does in a number of parts of the country, is this notion that if you're a legislator, you have to do something. Well, very often you don't, do you?
Yeah, most of the time, a lot of these pieces of legislation or proposed legislation are show bills.
Right.
They're there to either virtue signal or make some sort of political statement. Here's what I'm for, or here's what I'm against, knowing it has no chance of passing, but they're doing it for their own political gain for whatever reason. And to me, that's a waste of time. You're wasting our time, you're wasting your own time, you're wasting a legislative body's time.
Right. And pertinent, serious issues exist,
which are not being addressed.
Right. You know, the House gets together a few days a week at 4 o'clock with the rise of the House. And that's literally when the nonsense begins. You know, we honor this person, we honor that person. No, just figure out a way to do more with less.
How long did they argue over the bill to rename the CCRI campus over the former Senate president?
And who named something after somebody
who's still alive?
Who's still alive? Or I'm not sure where the connection is between her.
Well, it's fine. They may want to honor her, but can we also talk about other issues that are like affecting us today that all Rhode Islanders can relate to?
Right. Like the great pizza here at Pizza Fire, 374 Wickenden Street, who opened their doors to us without legal considerations, without an in-depth medical analysis.
That's right.
All right.
No prostate exam necessary.
Right. And serve some mighty fine pizza.
Excellent.
Excuse me. Cheers. Very professional. Does it feel like to you that the legislature has been in session for years when you come to the realization that we still have a solid 2.5 months left?
It feels like it never ends. They hold most bills for study. We all know how it works. They hold the bills for study, and at the end of the session, they try to jam a few through. And when nobody's paying attention, because a lot of people don't know, hold for further study just simply means they can bring it back at any time and vote it onto the floor. And they're not going to vote something onto the floor if they know it's not going to pass.
Right. So the question is, this appears to me, without doing a hard count, that the Attorney General has possibly sponsored more legislation than he ever had.
Absolutely. So he's crossed over into the lane of law enforcement into law making, which is specifically a problem with the separation of powers. Does he want to be a legislator or does he want to be a law enforcement agent? And apparently he wants to be a legislator because he's up in the state house more often than he's in his own office.
And you've been involved in the criminal justice system in Rhode Island 15 plus years. Have you ever seen this much legislation? And you've been through, let's name some. Were you working there with Jeff Hine as Attorney General when you came on right now?
No, I came on under Attorney General Patrick Lynch, and I worked in the Lynch administration and the Kilmartin administration.
Huh.
I know.
You typically don't dignify the reign, if you will, of one Peter Kilmartin.
But can I to that point, Pat?
Sure.
Can I make the point that while I certainly don't think that Attorney General Kilmartin was cut out for that job, I do think the current Attorney General is much more dangerous for that position than Peter Kilmartin was, because the current Attorney General does have a very well-manicured background, does have the legal acumen to do the damage that I believe he is doing in this position. And so I believe him to be a much bigger threat to the state than Peter Kilmartin ever was.
That's compelling stuff. I mean, my fear is there is no question that Mr. Noronha is an astute attorney.
I've never claimed otherwise.
Right. So not only is he doing this, it's clear, it's well within his understanding, his experience at very high levels of law enforcement to know exactly the constitutional as well as direct impact of his role as a legislator.
Absolutely.
Wow.
And that's why I think this was what compelled me to run, is that he knows better. I don't know that Peter Kilmartin knew better. And he had some very good people helping him run that office. I think that's why he got through that office without any major damage other than losing a lot of talented people. But they're losing a lot of talented people right now. And they're losing them because of political reasons, because they turned that office into a political office as opposed to a law enforcement office.
Right. We're now a few weeks removed from a number of these settlements that he's engaged in. These settlements have not come cheap to the state of Rhode Island.
Not that I can tell.
A lot of outside counsel.
Yes, they've definitely hired outside counsel, because the settlement that came out of the district, one of the districts in New York, there were several different states involved in that. They have outside counsel involved in this. They had certainly had outside counsel going through the lifespan merger issue, and then they hired all sorts of consulting groups. I don't know what they needed that for. It was pretty obvious on its face what the problem was for that. So, I mean, I had said it 2 weeks prior to that decision coming out. It's an antitrust problem. Do you need $30 million to spend on that to figure that out? No, you don't.
So the cost of legal affairs, if you want to say, has exploded over the last 10 years. Is there any guess? Do we have any clear number of how many attorneys are employed by the state of Rhode Island?
They have the so-called transparency portal, if you believe it, that's run by the state of Rhode Island, that you can look up all the employees of the Attorney General's office and find out what they're making, how long they've been working there, on their salary history. I haven't done it recently, but the last check, it was around 100 attorneys that work for the Attorney General's office.
Now, that's the Attorney General's office on a standalone basis.
Standalone.
Right.
Standalone.
You've also got organizations like the Department of Transportation. You've got a plethora, if you will, of other organizations that hire their own internal counsel, who then work with outside counsel.
That's right. And each state agency also has their own legal counsel that is employed. Sometimes they work together, sometimes they don't, sometimes they have to hire outside counsel. I mean, that in and of itself is not a problem, but the problem is that the reason why it's happening so often is because he's engaged in all these political processes that he wouldn't otherwise have to engage in.
Right.
Because of his partisan views.
Right.
If he just kind of went down his road, stayed in his lane, and did the law enforcement that we need here in Rhode Island, he wouldn't necessarily need to go down that road.
Right. Because law enforcement continues to be a challenge.
Of course it is. Our crime has gone up. You can't deny that. It's not just one area. I'm not going to just blame it on Providence. It's gone up across the state. It's maybe different types of crimes in different areas, but he has plenty to focus on here in Rhode Island that keep people safe from violent crime that's going on in the state.
So in short, if you look at the current events of the past week or so, and his hands are in virtually every one of them.
In one form or another.
Right. And those are expensive hands.
They are expensive hands. And state government in Rhode Island obviously is not cheap. We see that on a daily basis.
And yet there's no watchdog on the day-to-day running of the state on behalf of the taxpayer.
No, and that's the role that I think I can fill as an attorney general, is to be that day-to-day watchdog. Because that's my obligation as law enforcement, regardless of my political politics, is to be that watchdog to make sure people are doing their jobs, make sure they're doing it right, whether I agree with their policy or not. Just make sure they follow the law. So when they have these contracts, did you follow the correct procurement contract or procurement law? Did you follow the contracting law? Did you do everything you're supposed to do? Dot your I's and cross your T's. Did you do all that right, or are you just kind of playing games with us?
And as we kind of wind things down, and we're starting to close things up here at Pizza Fire, we got 374 Wickenden here on the east side of Providence, sort of on the cusp of Fox Point, but also touching on Risley. Great environment here, great food. And again, thank them for their hospitality. You've got the Commerce Board, as well as this loose amalgamation of legislators, open hands, quasi-governmental agencies, going crazy with this federal money. I mean, again, $1 billion. I don't see any analysis of legal oversight on that, on the projects they're getting involved in.
I don't see it. They haven't announced it, and it's not that they couldn't be doing it. Do they always have to do that? Not necessarily, but if there's a question raised, who better than someone who's the chief law enforcement officer of the state to look into these things?
Right. And to use the attorneys, whether it be through DVR in conjunction with the attorney general.
And there is that overlap. They do it with DLT when there's unemployment fraud or wage theft, as we see the attorney general charge somebody overcharged today because he's upset that they haven't passed his bill and legislation to make wage theft a felony. So he's coming up with other felony charges to try to charge this person. And I'm not defending wage theft, but there's another incident of overcharging because he's upset he has not got his bill passed.
Right. And the problem with overcharging, as we saw with the Brick case, is that it very often blows up in their face because despite some people's assertions, there are some very good judges in the state who,
they're excellent judges in the state
who understand where the line in the sand really is.
Right. And if you don't like the fact that wage theft is a misdemeanor, you know what? Go to the General Assembly, ask them to change the law.
Right.
Another fun evening, Pat.
You got some events coming up in the next couple of weeks you're going to be at, or folks can.
Well, I'm going to be all over the state. So I know this weekend I'm going to be at an event in Bristol, a football event, soccer event in Bristol with a few, hopefully, few supporters. I have an event coming up myself next Sunday, May 1st, at Brood Awakenings in Warwick, which I hope to meet some people and answer whatever questions they have. It's going to be Brood Awakenings May 1st in Warwick at 4 to 6 p.m. Hope to see you all there. And like I said, feel free to reach out to me. I want to be one of the most accessible attorneys general ever in the history of the state of Rhode Island. Send me an email, give me a call. You will get a response from me. Try doing that with Peter Aurora and see if you get a response.
Fair enough. Well, listen, give us the usual rundown. Well, first of all, the Brood event. That's May 1st.
Yes.
What time?
4 to 6 p.m.
4 to 6 p.m. Cash bar. There'll be some hors d'oeuvres there.
Sure.
Some pretty potent conversation. I got to say, if you're a political junkie from any side, because your goal really is to be the attorney general for everyone.
Everyone.
Right. Regardless of your personal policy. That's
exactly right.
All right. If you want potent political conversation, I got to believe that's the place to be. If you haven't been to Brood, it's a beautiful spot on Baldhill Road. By the way, they've got drive, so for the people listening to this show tonight, don't you dare go to a Dunkies on Baldhill Road. Dave Levesque has employed literally thousands of Rhode Islanders. It's a great area of business. He's committed both to charities and he's involved in it. He's a business person. He's got a significant investment in the state, so he's entitled to do that. Some people forget that, but this is a gentleman who's put forth, laid it all out on the table. But you're going to get a real mix of folks who are agitated, frustrated, angry, and regardless of what political perspective you have, join us that night.
I highly encourage it. And like I said, I don't want just people who are just going to echo my own thoughts. I want people who are going to challenge me. Come challenge me. I invite the questions. I will answer your questions. And even if I don't have an immediate answer for you, I'll get you an answer. So I invite anybody who's interested in this race and interested in what's going on in our state to come on May 1st to Brood and Warwick. I look forward to seeing you there. Hope to see you there. And I hope to see you out there around Rhode Island as I get around and meet all of you in person and answer all your concerns.
The signs are popping up everywhere.
I see them. They see them. They post them on social media all the time.
Everywhere from West Warwick to the Attorney General's office.
Somebody posted sign. I'm not encouraging that, but Somebody felt the need to post a sign on the Attorney General's office, but I've seen signs pop up from Westerly all the way to Cumberland.
Excellent.
So we finished another episode of Chaz Calenda, attorney at law here on the east side of Providence. Pizza Pie,
Pizza pie.
Pizza Pie. I appreciate their hospitality and letting us film here tonight. Excellent pizza, excellent location and hospitality. Look forward to seeing you on another event. We're going to have some great guests coming up. We're going to have some candidates for office coming in the next few weeks. We'll keep you updated on that. Appreciate you joining us here on the Coalition Radio Network again here for Chaz Calenda, attorney at law. Everybody have a great night. I'll see you soon.